it's ready to be sold. And so she kind of brings that perspective into the information and the brands that she shows. I am Sabrina. I have been an entrepreneur for a long time, but I didn't start out having a lot of business sense. I was one of those shoot, fire, aim kind of girls where I was very risk tolerant. It's easy for me to take risks and take a chance, and yet I don't always have the complete plan and structure of what I need to do to get there. And so franchising became a failsafe for me and a way for me to have a successful experience in the business world and really grow and develop into an entrepreneur that is quite successful. So through the course of my career, I actually ran and owned or managed 27 different franchise locations. And so I bring that experience to these conversations and discussions because it was a very visceral, real experience to work with 4 different franchise systems, to learn and see how they operate, to learn and watch how the same person can be different, have different levels of success with different franchises. And so I just wanted to bring that perspective. And then we also work with our franchise brokers, who our franchise brokers are all people that go through a character vetting process. I think it's really important to build a company and a community that has people you are inspired by and can share the same values as you and want the same things as you. Like, they really want to make a difference. They really want to do the right thing. They want to be educated in their work. And so they take the time and effort to do those things, to get educated, to get supported, and to learn the skills that they need to learn to effectively support someone in finding the right franchise for them. And then we work with Franchise Chatter as well. Franchise Chatter is an organization that they analyze franchises based on their financial information. And so there are a wealth of resources and tools on their resource site that has information to analyze franchises financially. So with that, let's go ahead and get started on our content today. So if you're wanting to, be a business owner, take the plunge, make the leap, how can you do that and safely grow? How is it that you can feel supported and then also challenged in that opportunity? And how can you seize opportunities while also effectively managing risk that's out there? And perhaps, I think even most importantly, is how do you align yourself with experienced people who not only respect your time and value you as much as you value them? They're not easy questions. They're sometimes really hard to answer. And I think that's because many of the businesses in our world today, they prioritize economic growth and are focused on are less focused on the more human growth environments. So if you can imagine people and businesses that have created a more safe environment to be able to grow with, these are companies that have already paid the price of learning, and now they want to share that hard-won knowledge with others to help them be successful. They're companies that kind of offer the best of both worlds, where they're offering growth, but they're doing it in a way that gives safety and guardrails in the process. And so I just want to mention, as I was preparing for this, it's actually a rare combination, and it's really a special combination of businesses and franchises specifically that are able to get to that level of being able to help franchise owners really grow and grow in a safer way. And so to truly appreciate those brands that are tried and true franchises, I think you need to take the time to understand that they're not operating at a normal business operations level. They they have put in more effort to maximize the output of their franchise owners. And so that deserves respect, and it deserves a level of understanding about the journey that it took for them to reach that status. So, I want to walk you through some stages of growth today. So, the first stage is the startup phase. No franchise begins as a franchise. And if they're doing that, beginning as a franchise before they've successfully run a business, I would say they're probably not ready to be a franchise, and you might not want to invest in that system. A franchise's life begins kind of as nothing more than this thought or this kind of sliver of an idea in the mind of the owner. And then that owner has to take it and create a startup business with it. They have to take that idea, that almost nothingness, and move it from thought into the material world. And unfortunately, it's not like Harry Potter does. We can't just wave a magic wand and all of a sudden have a thriving startup. It demands tremendous effort to do that. So, no matter how skilled you are as a business owner, startups are challenging. And I have spent about 22 years deeply analyzing and researching and building businesses. And I'm just somebody who's just intensely curious about business and the world. And so I'm always asking questions. And so I've had the privilege of actually seeing the inner workings of thousands and thousands of businesses. And so I've been able to look at them from a variety of angles. And that curiosity is actually what led me to franchising and my work previously as a franchise broker, because I got to see behind the curtains and see firsthand what makes a successful business tick, and then how to replicate that level of success. So, starting a business from scratch is kind of like this dim light, this idea, and it has to move into this massive undertaking as the business owner that's doing that startup. I was recently at a women's CEO event, and the speaker, she was on there and she was talking about how, she's a high level person, an engineer. She had a team of people. She's incredibly successful now, but she was saying that it took her 15 years before she started really making significant money. And this is something that touches my heart and actually really resonates with me, because recently I was cleaning out my attic and I found my first paycheck from one of my companies, and it was dated 5 years after the date that we launched. And I just think back to those early days and those 16-hour days that were just relentless, that I was fighting so hard to learn what I needed to learn. And I was inexperienced. I started in the process of business ownership truly undervaluing me and my value. I also faced a lot of challenges along the way. And that's not uncommon for startups. They typically operate in this place of pure chaos where they're figuring out every single minute detail on their own. And it's every lever, every communication, every system, every customer interaction, every employee issue, all of it, they're doing it alone, like completely alone. And so each of these decisions that the startup business owner makes, it's another point of potential failure. And it's just extremely emotional. It's a physically taxing experience. It'll make you a believer. If you're not one, it is a spiritually taxing experience. And relationally, it's challenging as well. one of my mentors described startup employees as muddy water fish because I was having all these troubles with initial employees. A lot of it is me. I didn't know how to manage. A lot of it was them, but he was saying that new employees in a startup business are usually muddy water fish. These are individuals who thrive when they're immersed in chaos. And as the business starts to stabilize, the waters become cleaner in that business. And so those initial employees often move on. They move out of the business because they don't fit a more structured environment. And he was exactly right. As we grew and we got cleaner and cleaner, the employees changed because most people want to start working in a clean environment. They are clean water fish. They want structure, clarity, balance, and organization. And with that, they're able to go and see where they want to go faster. They're able to do it in a way that is healthier for them and in a better mental disposition. If you can think about muddy water, chaotic environments, it's really intense. But those startup phases, they're filled with that kind of chaos and risk, from compliance issues to operational issues. There's a lot going on there. And oftentimes, as a startup, business owners, they don't know the rules yet. They just don't know about all the licensing requirements and the HR issues and the tax rules and the accounting rules and the insurance rules and the operational rules and the discrimination rules. There are so many rules, and they don't know them yet. They don't know what they don't know. And so they can easily get caught in a really, let's call it, unfun lawsuit that can either ruin all the effort that they've made or can take a lot of their focus and time away from the business. And those rules, they don't even seem natural sometimes because, like for instance, in California, they have a rule where only a general contractor, a person who builds and has to have like a construction license, only a general contractor is allowed to paint a house. Now, that's a pretty extreme rule. And if you don't know that and you start a business as a painter in California, you can get fined and you can get shut down. Or, there's another one in, I hate to pick on California, but there's another one in California that is a jurisdiction rule. And someone was actually telling me this story personally. They were saying that there's a jurisdiction rule where for certain vendors, you can only operate inside of a zone. So a vendor is given an operational zone. And if another new business that's not that vendor goes into that zone and let's say places equipment there, then the competitor who has the license for that zone is allowed to seize the property of the new encroaching business or vendor. So can you imagine being a new business, investing all this money in equipment, and then having your equipment seized by a competitor because you didn't know the rules of the zoning? Rules, there are many, and it's just hard to know and understand all of those, especially in those early stages of business. So there's these many legal landmines and they're everywhere. So one missed regulation or unknown rule can derail a lot. Now, I am super, super pro business, clearly. And so I believe that despite all of those difficulties, business ownership still remains one of the best pathways for wealth creation, but it's rarely straightforward. And the startup phase is extremely difficult. All right, so the next phase comes the scale phase. So the new one day wannabe franchise starts the business, they figure out the location, they get it going, and now they want to move to the next phase, which is the scale phase. So here, the business is kind of established that foundation of products, employees, they have customers, but they're not really thriving yet. And so the owner in this stage has to invest to test. So this is where they're kind of continually refining their operations. they're doing this demanding work of reinvesting and kind of testing and figuring out what to do to make the business work as best as possible. So in this phase, this is where the typical franchise idea is born. It's where the owner starts to see, wow, this has potential. Maybe I could make this a franchise one day. And so the business has to be proven. It has to be well proven in its success and its replicability to be able to be attractive and a franchisable system. And so even though the owner has that inkling, they have a lot of work to do to get it to the point that someone else will buy into that business. Now, there is a shortcut that some franchise systems use where they join in with a kind of like a larger conglomerate group of franchises. And in those situations, they are able to kind of use the resources, experience, and knowledge of these larger parent companies. But without that, it is very challenging. So before becoming a franchise, that new business has to prove not only that they can run the business well, but that they can have impressive enough returns that somebody would be interested in it. They have to be able to show that they're clean and organized enough to be able to scale, and that they have a model and opportunity that can work on a national stage setting. And that's just not an easy task. So if a company doesn't do this and then they try to franchise, well, they're likely going to have a pretty slow start and they're likely going to struggle to survive. It's just a lot of work, and figuring out the different drivers of the business have to be forefront for that company. So they have to go in and identify what their business metrics are. So if they were going to do this successfully, what are those business metrics that an independent owner would need to figure out too, if they're going to run those franchises. And so it takes a lot of effort. If they want to franchise, they've got to get these metrics fine-tuned enough to where they can operate and create peak performance in their process. They also have to figure out and kind of map out what some of those landmines would be that a small business owner can fall into in the rules. And so a small business owner who wants to franchise, they have to go through all of that. And unfortunately, sometimes the way to go through that is actually stepping on a lot of those landmines in the process and experiencing the pain of those consequences. So in the scale phase, the owner, they're also dealing with a persistent level of lack. It's kind of like a lack experience in that stage because they feel like they're short on time, they're short on talent, they have too much to do, they're lacking capital, they're lacking systems. It just feels very overwhelming. And so at that stage of scaling, they're really investing to test, and they're battling that state of lack on a consistent basis. And so to stay positive, it takes a lot of mental exercising and mental work to keep themselves in the right frame of mind, to be forward thinking and productive as they're reinvesting and creating these opportunities. The stress in that stage is very intense, and it's easy to let yourself be overwhelmed. It's stressful and it's challenging, but as Bree on my team always says, the way the way to it is through it. The way to it is through it. And when a franchise or a business is able to get through that and get to the franchise readiness position, they really do become a better and better business at those phases. But once they're ready, once they've got the business really working well and the metrics worked out, everything's moving and grooving, then they have to go into the franchise phase. And this is kind of the growth phase where they're extending through other owners. And at this point, the business has to create and file very detailed paperwork called the franchise disclosure document. So this is where they have a federally required disclosure document, and then there are 14 states that say you have to file your documents with us or register with us. And that whole process is costly. It's an annual process. It's complex. It requires accountants and attorneys and audits. There's all kinds of things that go into that process. And that paperwork is typically about 200 to 400 pages, and it spells out the history between the franchisor, its leadership, the past franchisees who purchased the business, their audited financials. It talks about the details of their opportunities. It goes over different state restrictions, their agreements, their growth rates, and so much more. It is expensive, it is arduous, it is not fun, and it can cost a franchise up to $250,000 or more to become a franchise system. And that's just for the setup. That does not include what goes beyond the paperwork. And that's creating this whole new business, because they started with the flagship location. Now the franchise business is a separate business. It is a different goal, a different structure, a different needs. And so they have to do a new startup business that is the franchise. Franchising is all about systems, support, leadership, and teamwork. And so those systems are, again, costly to produce and develop, and then have the staff to maintain and grow. And so again, this requires a substantial investment from the franchise, and really a shift in what they're doing day to day. So they often have to even sell their business or have a franchisee or manager run their flagship location to invest everything in the franchise to get it going in those early phases. Now, the franchise has to grow this new infrastructure at a whole new level, because business today is not like it was in the olden days. You can't rely on low-tech solutions and operate well in today's environment, especially in a high-level field like franchising, where you're dealing with high-end investors and professionally qualified people. Like, the types of people you are around are sophisticated, and so it requires a higher tech solution. So businesses have to have sophisticated marketing, they have to have systems, they have to have demographics insights, calling systems, lead generation systems, AI systems, management and training systems, HR systems, financial systems. And a new one that's really come into play with the advent of AI is security protections, because of the amount of hacking and scamming that is out there. So there's a whole lot of extra things that go into operating and building the franchise. That's just to build it. Then they have to fill it. So the franchise has to find people who match their values, the skill level that they're looking for, the investment level of the franchise, be in the markets that the franchise is looking to grow with. And that's a really important part of the process, because if they pick the wrong people to represent their brand, that area and the market will suffer, and it will be harder for new franchise owners to get into that system. Because remember, in franchising, everything is reported on the FDD in that following year, and then in the next year, and then in the next year. And so when a brand is not finding good people, it really hurts them. And when they are finding good people, it really helps them. And that is where good qualified franchise brokers come into play. And then the brand has to take this new prospective franchise owner through a whole discovery process, and both parties have to evaluate each other, just like if they're going into a partnership. It's a business partnership, and they need to see if they can work together successfully and get the results that they're seeking together. Are they going to be good partners? So I want to just take a step back for a moment and think about the franchise system. So now you're bringing in a new franchise owner, and let's say that franchise owner says, "Yes, I want to join this franchise." Now that new owner has to join the system. And so they're starting a brand new business within the franchise system. They're starting something new, something that they've never done before. And so often they struggle in that first year. They struggle a lot with themselves, really. It's figuring out, getting themselves to do the things they need to do, figuring out what their priorities are. They're like redesigning who they are. There's also there's they go through things where they're not used to spending money the way that they're spending money. They're not used to reorganizing their life the way that they have to do in those first years. They're not used to managing all of these professional skills that maybe they haven't done before. They're not used to investing like this. And so those first years are typically not super fun for the franchise owner. It is hard work and it is totally worth it, but it is hard. So don't think for a second that it's going to be a super easy ride, because it's not. It is something that is challenging and is something that will grow you in ways you've never been grown before. But it is something that once you do it and once you get it right, it pays in excess. All right, so those new franchise owners, they're often kind of in the feeling space of kind of going through it. And so if you were out on your own and starting something new and doing it from scratch, you'd have really no one to talk to. And you'd be facing all of these battles alone, and it's hard. But as a franchise owner, they're going through it with the system for the support. And the tried and true ones, they have built in layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of support. So they have a layer of support for administration, and then they have a deeper layer of support for technical guidance. Then they have a deeper layer of support for marketing. Then they have a deeper layer of support through franchisee advisory councils. So these are other owners coming together to collaborate. And then they might even have a deeper layer of support for financial reviews with you. They might have a deeper layer of support depending on that brand, that can be things like field support or sales training or universities to educate your employees with training and more. Now, the franchise is doing that to help give you resources and access to grow and scale your business effectively. So, but know that every single new franchise owner that a franchise brings into the system in that first year is a heavy burden. It drains the system. It's a drain on a lot of the resources, because those new franchise owners need a lot. And in that process, the franchise has to always be kind of being that voice of reason when the franchise owner feels doubt or feels overwhelmed. They have to be the ones that are clearing working and operating in a clear head whenever there's any market storms or challenges, or whenever they're creating some new add-on feature for the system. They have to be the ones that are kind of aligning everybody and getting them focused on the best channels for good for the whole system. They also have to be the supplier who's supplying and getting vendor resources to those new owners who don't have them. They have to be the ones that are being innovators and helping keep ahead of the various market changes. And they have to be the leader that helps the franchise owner be a leader too in their own business. And that it takes real leadership from the franchise system in order to be able to give that to their franchisees and help them to be that person that they know they can be. And managing all of that is really expensive. It takes a lot of high level support people to be able to do those things. And it is something that a whole group has to come together as an ecosystem and really operate for the benefit of all. Um, all right. So I will also say that franchising is a little bit different than like managing a regular company, because when you're managing a regular company, you have total control. You can hire, fire, train. You can pick and remove people at will for what your objectives are. With a franchise, you're going into a contract for a period of time that is usually 10 years. And so these people are in a business relationship together. They've all invested in each other. And so it's less about just straight managing and directing. And it's a lot more about leading, inspiring, training, supporting, nurturing, developing, really doing the things that help a person move out of the way of themselves and into what they know they can be. And all of that, like, to the franchisor's credit, it's hard. It's extremely emotionally taxing. And it's also hugely emotionally rewarding at the same time. So there's a lot of struggles that these new franchise owners are facing. And there's a lot of support that those franchise systems are providing and being able to help them be successful along the way. All right. I will also just say that I think it's really important to respect the gift and the sacrifice of those who have operated before you, because in anything, the people who have gone before you have laid a path. And in franchising, especially, the franchise has paid the price to learn the lessons that you don't have to pay the price to learn. So, as your mentor, they've kind of paved a path for you to walk on. And it's not that you're not going to have challenges too, you are, but it won't be as many, it won't be as extreme of the level of challenges that could be there if you didn't have that. And so I just want you to think of your franchise, those tried and true franchises, as they're a partner, and they're a essential part of your business success, and they should be valued for the path of that they're bringing and for helping you to become who you want to be. They've done it. They've paid a huge cost, and they're here to support the franchise owners to hitting a higher level of success. Now, franchises that hit over 100 units, they've been operating for some time, and they've been through the process of kind of toughening themselves up, so they're durable and they've stood this test of time. They've really just been through it. And I just don't want to discount the effort that it took to build that successful franchise system. Now, I'm running over on time, so I'm going to speed up a little bit here, but after they become the franchise, then they move into the expand phase. And that's where they're really focused on sustainability and expansion. And they're adding on additional resources and tools to help that franchise owner and the system be more profitable and optimized. So, to give you a quick example, a franchise system that we work with that does pool maintenance, they have pool maintenance as a service, and then they add on a next level of service, which is pool repairs. And then they add on a next level of service, which is pool remodels. And then they add on a next level of service, which is building and installing pools. So they create an opportunity where that pool owner now and that franchise owner has a multi-line revenue opportunity for the lifetime of that pool. And so anytime the brand gets to that stage, they should be thinking of things like that. So in short, becoming a tried and true franchise does come at a huge cost to the system. They've overcome incredible odds, and that's the reason they're so special. And so they deserve the respect in the partnership and should be valued, because their offering is hard earned. It's been strategically created, and it's stood the test of time, the landmines along the way, the storms, the chaos, the lack, and they tend to be worthy partners. and potentially great ones that you can align with. So I want to switch to a quick poll and have you guys take this poll. We're going to do this real quick. Next slide. Okay, so what is the most important value a franchise system can give you? You can enter that poll, click which one you agree with most, and then we'll check out the answers real quick here. And then we're going to switch it over to Adrienne, and she's going to take you through a speed round because I took too much time of the franchises that are available. Oh, okay. You guys are liking proven model. Lots of proven model ones. Okay, great. Well, thank you guys so much for your input there. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide, and Adrienne, we'll have you take it away.
Perfect. All right. And I'm assuming you can hear me. So some of the things that we took a look at, aside from being in the tried and true category, which is obviously that solid track record of success, is good franchisee validation, which, assuming they've been around for as long as these that we're talking about today have been around, you would assume that franchisees have good things to say about them, but that's not necessarily a given. So we do want to make sure that the franchisees that are within the system are happy. And when you talk to them, they would say that they would do this again. They would renew their contract. They're happy with the support that they get from the franchisor and the company culture. So those are still good things to validate. Don't just assume that because they've got a long track record that everything is peachy keen. That we want to be in a growth industry, that, things do change. Look at what happened to Blockbuster. So a growth industry and something that has a future, not just something that's hot today, is really important. The financial health of the franchisor is important also. Are they well capitalized that they're going to be around to stand the test of time? And are they well capitalized to support you in the endeavors that they're supporting you in? And a bonus is if it happens to be in a fragmented market. And we're going to talk about a number of those as we go along, and I'll explain more about that. But a fragmented market, meaning where you've got a lot of competition, but the franchisors can compete very well against those competitors because mom and pops just really can't compete very effectively against the level of sophistication that a franchise can bring to bear in terms of the marketing or the IT infrastructure or all of those other things that large companies can bring compared to those mom and pops. So with that said, let's take a look at the first franchise on our list today, which is, I believe, the Maids. So the Maids has actually been around since, I think it is, I'm trying to remember what year it was, but
1979.
19, there it is, right on the screen. I'm looking at my notes instead of the screen. But with almost 1,500 units, they are a really strong franchise. They're the number one ranked residential brand by Entrepreneur Magazine. They've been around for a long, long time. And when you think maid service, I hear from a lot of people, I don't even like cleaning my own house. Why would I want to own a maid service? And the answer is, you are not going to clean anything. The owner's role, this is an executive level business for executive minded people who are looking to build a really scalable asset and create a really excellent income stream. It also is a really good franchise for semi passive ownership. So very different than you might expect. But residential cleaning is an outstanding industry. It's a growth industry. It's, again, a fragmented industry that has maybe 4 or 5 powerful franchise brands, but then thousands of small independent business owners that are all tapping into this predictable recurring revenue stream and producing great returns. And the Maids really leverages a team cleaning strategy. It has a 22-step team cleaning process to make cleaning jobs really fast, very efficient. They have alliances with major brands like Mr. Clean, a very iconic brand, Amazon Home Services, and it makes the cleaning experience very pain-free for the customer. One of their um, kind of claims to fame, or what makes them easier to work with, is their online booking system, where in 5 minutes or less, customers can book things online, or their national call center, and that's really a strategic advantage for them. So all of those features mean more scalability, more profitability, more personal time for each owner. It's a very lifestyle, family-friendly business. No nights, no weekends. Very low startup costs. They have in-house financing, and I could go on with all kinds of additional great things to say about it, but for the sake of time, we'll probably cut it off there. I will say again, this is an executive role franchise. You're managing managers who in turn manage teams. Each team has a team leader that keeps the team that's going out to clean accountable for each clean during the day. There's software tools that are available for the teams, for the managers, for the owners, for everyone to stay accountable and make sure this process is run really smoothly, which is why they get such great reviews also. So wonderful franchise and very low cost. And our next franchise is 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning. And this is one of a portfolio of brands under Authority Brands. And again, they are the #1 HVAC brand nationwide. So we're talking about some really strong brands here. And again, I want to emphasize, you don't need to be a licensed HVAC tech. The franchisor will help identify someone who will be that person that holds the license for you. And so when people say, I don't have any experience, that's fine. Neither do a lot of other people that are business owners in this. With the way they have their structure and with what they do to recruit, they only have a 5% technician turnover rate. So when people say, I'm worried about the labor pool, I'm worried about employees, this is a really strong business for that. The franchisor helps recruit right from the very beginning, apprentice level, where you can really recruit for attitude, and they're very proactive in helping franchisees with that recruiting and retention, where they help employees in training to get them from that apprenticeship level and move up the ranks, which is one of the ways that they help with retention. They do a lot of recruiting with military. They had everybody in their franchisee classes last year fully staffed when they left training. So that's another really key distinction for them that gives them a market advantage. It's definitely an essential service, very high return on investment, very short ramp up time. They're truly a market leader. One of the things I love about them, they have their club that people can join to become members. And as a member of the, I'm drawing a blank on the name of their club, the technicians sell memberships to the club, which gives their members discounts on their annual service. Plus, it gives them priority scheduling. And it also really creates that customer stickiness that keeps them coming back, which is obviously wonderful for client retention. But it also is wonderful for employee retention, because the employees get $1 out of every $10 that is paid by the members to be a member of the club. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have 80% of the people that they offer the membership to buy it, and they have, I think it's also an 80% year over year retention of people who continue to be members, it creates a nice little almost golden handcuffs of people who stay as club members. And so people want to continue to maintain that. It really increases their paycheck. So very strong recurring revenue, with people getting up to 2 service calls per year. And it's a really great business from the standpoint of that essential service. These are professional blue collar employees. We've heard about the difficulty of finding employees. If you can find a business where you've got stable employees that are willing to stick around, and you've got a franchisor behind you that's willing to recruit and train, and you've got marketing systems that bring customers in the front door, you've got 9/10 of the battle won. So I'm running short on time. We'll leave it there. The total investment is between 133 and 276,000. And our third franchise is Fast Signs, a wonderful business, been around forever. The support that they have is absolutely phenomenal. This is a really creative business. So the number of um, different things that fall in the category of signs is kind of amazing. Most people don't think of all of the things that are really signs, from trade show displays, point of purchase, safety signs, vehicle graphics, floor graphics, banners, all of the interior signs or the drive-through signs you see at Starbucks or McDonald's or whatever they may be. They're changed out month after month. So by the time you're in business for a reasonable period of time, about 80% of your business is coming from maybe 20 customers. So that ongoing repeat business is wonderful. And again, regular business hours from loyal professional customers with very short break even time, very high profit margins. And you have a very small number of talented employees, and you can make a great income from one store. You don't need multiple locations because you can deliver your services in a broader range, and that's a territory model that they can explain. Once again, only typically a 5-day a week model. And they have one employee on the corporate staff for every 5 franchisees. So the support that they offer is truly phenomenal. They say if your employees are spending more than 10 minutes looking for an answer, they should be calling the corporate office, not bothering you. You've got better things to do than worrying about answering technical questions for your employees. That's their job, which I think is a pretty phenomenal support mechanism on the part of the franchisor. The returns that they get are um, for the investment. I think the franchisor really delivers value on an ongoing basis. Their franchisees will tell you that in validation because they do provide ongoing training, not just for their owners, but for their franchisees. They provide a lot of value on that ongoing basis. And do a search for any one of those kinds of signs that I was telling you about. They will show up number one in any Google search if there's a Fast Signs anywhere remotely close by. So their marketing is truly phenomenal. They are definitely the 800-pound gorilla in the market, and they do a phenomenal job all the way around. So for a total investment of 215 to 377, they're a great one to look at if you like the idea of a creative business where every day is a little bit different because every sign is a little bit different. And our next business is MRI Network. MRI Network is essentially a staffing business, but it is I'm trying to get back to my notes here. Sorry. They have been around, that's what I was thinking of, that was established in 1965. So they specialize in executive search and contract staffing. So very comprehensive solutions, and they serve companies worldwide. They've got 250 offices across 18 countries. So very, very well established. And they really have a different model than a lot of other staffing services. They focus on industry specialization based on what their franchisees have industry expertise in. So it's delineated by very well-defined disciplines, and they're not constrained by geographical boundaries, which is a very different model. Their core services encompass direct hire and interim solutions, which is also called contract staffing. So when they introduce top talent to a company that hires them, they earn a fee that can range from anywhere from 20 to 35% of a candidate's first year compensation. The average for that is $29,000, so very significant fees. So it's a high ticket item. They also earn very significant fees for their contract hires as well. Their recruiters are better known as talent advisors. And the talent advisor is very, very different from a normal staffing company. Staffing company is going after people that are typically looking for jobs, and they're going after the low-hanging fruit of everybody else that's looking for jobs. A talent advisor is very different. They have a much deeper knowledge of the talent pool and the key decision makers in those sectors. They have a lot of understanding of the industry's intricacies, and they stay informed about the market dynamics and the compensation structures. And they really work as a trusted advisor with the companies that they serve. So they work with the companies to offer guidance on client branding and attraction strategies to position them as the preferred employer for top tier talent. And they also work to connect with candidates that may already be employed and may not even be unhappily employed, but maybe looking to just make a couple tweaks to a job. Um, so very different structure, which also means they get very significant referrals, both from their candidates and from the companies that they work with. But they have over a half a century of experience, and again, no territorial restrictions, which gives you the freedom to choose both where you work and where you live. And they're open to specialization in any industry. So it's a really different model, and a very low investment. So it's an interesting, unique model that's very different from the crowded staffing space. And one more, I think, if we move on to our next franchise, just for the sake of time, Pillar to Post. So Pillar to Post has also been around, and they've got a really unique story. They were founded in 1993, when the home inspection industry itself was only about 10 years old. You know, people used to rely on friends and family with construction experience when they bought a house. And Mike Brewer, who was the founder, just thought this was a ridiculous way to run a railroad. And he had formal technical training. And so he detailed standards of practice for conducting an inspection and built a business with that and had an operations program. And from there, as Sabrina was outlining, kind of from his one business, it became a franchise. So this really is, again, an executive model where the owner is fully involved, but is not the home inspector. He doesn't have to be. And the owner's role is really to build that local team to scale. And it's a turnkey operation. What makes it easy is that they've got iPads programmed with all of the things that you need to inspect. So someone that doesn't necessarily have any background can run through and do the simple parts of a home inspection, and someone that has some general training can go through and do the more detailed parts. So I'm simplifying it because I'm feeling rushed for time, but it's a very, very structured, well-run process, and the proprietary technology makes the home inspections very easy. They can turn them around very quickly, which is really what realtors want, which is what makes it very attractive to them. And they're the referral partners that make this whole thing work. So building those relationships is really what Pillar to Post is all about. Linex is our last franchise, and just to kind of round this out in 2 minutes or less to leave Sabrina time to wrap this all up, Linex has also been around for a long time. They've got a network of over 275 locations. It began as a small family-owned business that specialized in chemical manufacturing, and after a few years, they stumbled on a formula that was versatile, durable, spray-on, elastomer polyurethane, and they introduced a spray-on application system, and the Linex coating was born. And like a lot of new inventors, they didn't have any idea how the coating would take off until they discovered the perfect application for a bed liner for trucks. And from there, it's now come into a whole lot of other applications where they've used it for anything from oil pipelines in Saudi Arabia to equipment in construction, boats, trailers, farm equipment. And from there, it's also gone on to now the Linex stores that they have truck accessories, and they do uplifts on trucks and a whole host of other things that this equipment has been used on. It's been used for defense applications by the United States government as well. They have award-winning R&D and a whole host of other things I could go on and on about, but fabulous business. And they do have this, as you can see, physical bricks and mortar location, wonderful franchise, absolute brand name recognition, nothing else like it in the marketplace, no competitors that can touch what they do. And very unique franchise as well. And with that, Sabrina, I'm going to turn it back to you to wrap up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Adrian. I do just want to say that all franchises are not created equal, and a good franchise for one person is not a good franchise for another person. It is truly a custom experience, and you want to make sure that you understand who you are as a person and what you want to accomplish, and make sure that the franchise that you're going into is really the right fit for being able to get you there. A lot of times people look for a franchise based on a consumer mindset. They're a customer of it, and they think because they're a customer of it, they'll be a good owner of it. And we have found that you really want to focus more on a business mindset and you as the business owner. Because if we can place you in franchises that give you the results you're actually looking for, then that's truly the right fit, as opposed to just liking the food or the clothes or whatever it is that the franchise offers. There are many, many options in many different categories. And if you see that scan me button down there, that allows you to book a call with us, and we'll take you through what's called an entrepreneurial profile. And that profile helps us to identify what franchises you would be best aligned with, and then also what franchises have successful owners who are like you. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. I do want to just put a disclaimer on here. All financial information for a franchise needs to be delivered by the franchise disclosure document and the franchise system itself. And so you're going to verify all financial information from that document, and then you use it to actually verify with all the franchise owners that you want to talk to in the system. So franchising is kind of cool like that, because it gives you access to verify and check the information that you receive with the past owners in the system. Next slide. All right, if you have any questions, if you want to begin the process, if you would like to just talk to us and say hello, you can scan that to book a call. There's also here to help at franchiseba.com or 800-349 2985 is the phone number. We would be happy to support you in anything you're interested in related to franchising. I want to thank you guys so much for your time and attention. There's a lot to be said for being a successful franchise business and finding brands that give you that advantage and speed up the time to launch, and then speed up your ability to not have so much stress as an owner. It really does make a difference. And having done it as many times as I have to say that the difference in stress and speed are so much faster with a franchise as compared to an independent startup business. So you choose, you decide, or you explore, you let us know, and we'd be happy to talk with you. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Have a great day. Bye.